Hi everyone, and welcome to today's pen review. Today we're looking at a pen from the Kustoms Pen Co. It is the Fountain K. Now this is one of their early model pens, one of the first pens that they produced in their workshop, and it is a beautiful looking pen. I have to say, it is really striking in a really interesting industrial sort of way. Today I'm going to give you a couple of specs about the pen, tell you a little bit about my thoughts on what I like and what I don't like, and then I'll show you a little writing sample. So, Kustoms Fountain K. In terms of the specs of the pen, it is 130 millimeters when it is capped, and when you uncap it, it goes down to 120 millimeters. Now, it can post, but it's not a comfortable posting, so steel on the back, and does make for quite a long pen. The weighting is still okay, so the balance doesn't go off, but it's just not a nice pen to post. So it does fit quite nicely, unless you had ginormous hands, to write with it uncapped. The pen weighs 25 grams, and 9 of that is in the cap. So with 16 grams of the pen being in the barrel, it's still got enough heft in your hand to let you know it's there, without it being at all too heavy. This is the silver aluminium finish, and as you can see, I got the same for the section. Now the section itself is rather narrow, and it does taper and then flare towards the end. Now it's not uncomfortable in terms of how small it is, but it isn't it's certainly not a big section, and it does have the threads and the step up onto the barrel at the back, but they're not sharp or in the way. So even if you hold the pen slightly further back, they're not going to really be too uncomfortable underneath your fingers. The end cap is just plain silver, and then with the actual pen cap, we have this lovely gnarled machined sort of top, very plain sort of finial there, and then the clip is a piece of bent steel screwed on to the top of the cap. Now I really love the look of this cap. I think it's a really cool design, and I love the fact that it's sort of screwed on there. It's like the mechanics of the pen are on display, and I think that's really cool. One of the reasons why I chose this pen instead of the ink, their other model. I got this pen with the medium nib, and it is a medium Bock nib from the German company, and it's a really lovely steel nib. It's smooth, it's quite broad for a medium, and it's really nice and wet. It's a cartridge converter pen, and it comes with I think it's a Schmidt converter, so there's nothing to worry about there. It does take short or long international cartridges, and you do get some short international cartridges with the pen when you buy it. The packaging for the pen is really interesting. It's a nice sort of plain cardboard packaging that sort of opens up, and when the pen's there, it sort of sits in here. You get some information, a sticker, and some cartridges, as I said. And I really like, this company seems to have a really sort of interesting sort of sense of humour. And so dozens of satisfied customers on the back there, things like that. They seem to be a really sort of decent company with sort of good social media connections, and sort of community engagement, which is great to see. Well, what do I like? As I've said, I really like the design. I think this sort of industrial look really is a really great look for fountain pens. It's a really good EDC sort of feeling about it. It's sturdy, it's strong. There's that famous video of Brian Goulet from Goulet Pens throwing one of these across a car park and driving over it in his car, and the pen writes perfectly straight afterwards, and there's only like a couple of little dings in the material, but it sort of stands up to that sort of abuse. So that's really impressive. When the pen writes, I think it's a beautiful nib. It really does write very, very smoothly, and as I said, nice and wet. But I do have a couple of issues with the pen. Now, some of these are minor, and some of these for me are sort of almost deal breakers. The first minor issue I have is this. That noise to unscrew the barrel from the section to sort of get to the converter is just awful. That metal on metal sound, and I'm sure I could put some, silicone grease or something on it, but that noise just grates right through my body. Now, a couple sort of more serious issues. This is an EDC pen, really. Let's be honest. It's not designed as a fine writing, presentation pen or anything like that. This is a pen for everyday use. And part of the everyday use function of a pen is the ability to be able to clip it onto your shirt collar, into a pocket, wherever. Now, you can clip this onto denim. This will go onto a jean pocket or into some sort of heavy duty cases. But this clip is so rigid that it is just not going onto a shirt collar. I tried to put it into a shirt pocket. It would just not go on the material without me holding the material absolutely tight to get it between the clip and the cap. So that is a bit of an issue. And my other only tiny thing with the clip is that the screws don't line up. And I know that's really sort of pedantic, but for me, that's a thing. And I've actually unscrewed them a couple of times and tried to get them to line up, and I can't seem to get them to line up either horizontally or vertically with the clip. So that bugs me a little bit. But for me, the most serious problem with this pen is actually the cap. When you tighten it down, you actually feel like you have to torque it down ever so slightly to get a proper grip on of the cap on the barrel, on the body of the pen. It is if it's just down lightly, it takes a tiny amount of effort to get that loose, and then it's loose from there, and it's not going to take much. It's only like 1.5 turns to get the pen out. I had this in my jean pocket walking my daughter to school the other day, and by the time I got home, it was already, half a turn out. And that belies part of the other problem with this pen is the sealing of the cap. There's no internal cap or anything like that. And it means that the pen does dry out. So occasionally you get hard starts when you first start writing. I think that also may be an issue somewhere with the feed and the nib, because occasionally it does dry out, even if, between sentences, if I if I don't write for 30 seconds and I go back to write, it's dried out. And you don't get that with a lot of pens. It does happen with some, so that's a little bit of an issue there. But the main issue is with the cap. Overall, I think it's a really great pen. I think that it's certainly got a lot going for it. I'd be interested to have a look at the ink, but I'd particularly be interested to look at the Decograph, their new model pen. I think it's a beautiful looking pen, and I think the design and construction of the pen is actually sort of going to be a lot better in a lot of ways than this pen. I think the clip on the Decograph looks fantastic. I think there's some sealing with the cap, which is just going to stop that drying out. As I said, that's my biggest issue with this pen. But let's see the pen in action. Here I have some Rhodia paper, and this is inked with Noodler's 54th Massachusetts, one of my favourite inks at the moment, and I think a really good match for this pen. So we have, it started for the first time that time. This is a medium Bock nib. And as you can see, it's quite a broad medium. It's really nice and smooth, and it's actually smoother than the sound of that feedback suggests. I don't know if that makes any sense, but you can hear the nib on the paper, but it feels a lot smoother than that sound suggests. So as I said, this is Noodler's. And which is a really lovely ink, as I said. So this is a wet pen. It does put down a really lovely, solid, thick amount of ink on the page. It's certainly, a very comfortable writer. You can't get a huge amount of line variation out of this nib. There's a tiny bit there to be had, but really, like, you've got to put quite a lot of pressure to get any of that out. Reverse writing is actually pretty good. It's certainly not as dry as a lot of other pens with reverse writing, and it does make it quite fine. It is a little bit scratchy, but if you were going to be doing that a lot, you could probably work something out with that. So yeah, I really like the way this pen writes, and I actually do like the feeling of the pen in the hand. A couple little issues, but nothing that sort of too insurmountable. All in all, a really good pen and really great value, knowing that these pens are machine made in the United States. They're not sort of mass produced, you know, somewhere in China, for instance, like say Jinhao pens. These are more or less sort of hand machined, and they're really beautifully made. Little issue with sealing on the cap, but really that's, you know, it's not going to be a make or break whether the pen is going to work for you. So I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Hit the notifications button if you want to stay up to date with the videos that I produce. Please feel free to drop me a message. You can do that either here on YouTube or on Instagram, at my blog, or on Twitter, which are all linked down below. I'd love to know if you have any thoughts on the Karas Kustoms Fountain K, if you've had any issues with it being, you know, hard starts and things like that, or you know, what you think about the other pens from this brand. In the meantime, enjoy your pens, enjoy writing, and I'll see you later.